Shifting focus to the broader African market, now the first 100 days in office is considered a crucial benchmark to measure the early success of a president. Next week, Ghanaian President John Mahama will hit 120 days in office. During his electoral run, he made a number of promises. Jervin Naidoo, political analyst at Oxford Economics Africa, joins us to discuss the hits and misses. Jervin, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. So 100 days of Ghanaian President Mahama. As we get started, just walk me through the significance of his time in office, Jervin.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, it's quite important, as you mentioned. He made a lot of promises when he was coming in or he was campaigning for the position that he would achieve quite a lot of lofty promises. As you know, politicians love making these promises. So he said within his first 120 days of the social contract in Ghana, he would achieve 26 key promises that he made to Ghanaians. So as you mentioned, next week is the actual 120-day deadline. So lots of Ghanaians are looking into this. I'm looking into this as I cover the country extensively. So yeah, it's quite a big thing to sort of judge how well is he doing or how bad is he doing. So, yeah.
We have just under 20 days to go until he hits that 120 mark. Jervin, what has he achieved so far when you look at that 120-day promise and plans?
Yeah, so I would say out of 26, I would say roughly 11, maybe 12 have been actually achieved, but the rest either in progress or I don't think are going to be made. I think the first one would be promised to get rid of the e-levy, the betting tax, and an emission tax, as will help smaller Ghanaian businesses. We've already seen that. The interesting one that I've been following was he would provide seed money for a bank to empower women, specifically women in Ghana. So he's achieved that, which I really like. He's made progress on a national economic dialogue. So, as you know, Ghana went through hyperinflation a couple of years ago. It's still reeling from a high cost of living. So he's had this national economic dialogue, and he's also made promises to, appoint his ministers within 2 weeks, which he did, and cut down government. So he cut down government only by a few ministers, but it makes a difference, considering the high salaries these ministers approve. So I would say about 11, he's probably made solid, good promises on investigating corruption, which he has, though I must admit, no one's been charged, even though he's been investigating quite a lot of people. So I would say solidly at least half of my 11 is not bad out of 26. I think realistically we could achieve all 26.
And just your assessment around President Mahama's presidency so far. I'm thinking about, just the optimism we have been seeing when it comes to, I guess, some economic reforms as well as just investment.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's been a lot of positivity around it. And I think there's maybe something we'll chat about is that, particularly the IMF and Ghana are about to reach a new agreement. That tells us that the IMF is also happy with its reforms. The high gold price and the establishment of the new gold board, a regulatory body similar to the cocoa board, which regulates gold in Ghana, has also been established. So there's lots of positive reforms. So investors are looking at Ghana and saying, okay, look, there are good policies in place. The rule of law has always been strong in Ghana as one of the most stable democracies in the continent. Though corruption and certain policies haven't always been great. So the optics of going after some of the high-ranking officials from previous government that were allegedly corrupt, these new policies, regulatory policies, and the IMF sort of green light tells us that okay, there's some good policies in place, and businesses will be looking. African businesses, international businesses, will be like okay. Ghana might be the spot again. So I still, as from our previous interviews, I still maintain my optimism. Ghana's heading in the right direction for now.
And I mean, this also comes at a time where the macro picture is also changing. We're now, at a point where we have all these tariffs coming to the table. Even though there is a 90-day pause, we still are uncertain about, the future when it comes to trade policies. Ghana, yes, being less impacted because it was just hit with that baseline 10% tariff. But, moving forward, as we reach that 120-day deadline, do you expect to hear, more on that from the president?
Yeah, I think he's scheduled an address, if I'm not mistaken, next week, commemorate this 120 days. So maybe we can have a chat about that another time. But I think he will mention the tariffs, but I don't think he will say it in so many words. Ghana is a kind of strategic partner to the US, particularly its counterterrorism measures. So considering where Ghana is within the West Africa Sahel region, the US does rely on Ghana for certain counter-terrorism measures to keep terrorism at bay. So I think they will be sort of leveraging that kind of deal with the Americans to say, look, can we hold off on some tariffs because we can help you strategically. Plus, Ghana is on the coast, so strategically it's pointed in the right direction. So I think Mr. Mahama is probably going to use that. He's probably going to look at the gold angle. Ghana is a massive producer of gold, which they do send some to the States as well. So I think he's going to mention tariffs, and he'll probably look at how they can sort of push for greater trade within ECOWAS and the African region, broadly speaking.
It does seem like, Ghana may be in, the US's good books for now, considering that also we have AGOA hanging in the balance, right?
Yes, 100%. I think one thing we've been looking at Oxford is the state of AGOA for all the African countries. For ASEAN and South Africa, it's really important, but there are other places that are also going to would struggle. So we think that across the board, if AGOA does go, I think the US will then focus on bilateral deals with these countries. So I think from what we're seeing, the Ghanaians have already started speaking to the Americans about possibly, if AGOA is not extended, then we'll probably have some kind of very specific bilateral deal between Ghana and the US regarding trade.
And just your general assessment around what you've made of, these negotiations, these trade talks that have been ongoing with some African countries as well as some of the other countries. It does seem like we are still really in uncertain times because we don't even know where the progress of these talks are. It just seems like we are sitting here and we don't know how to move forward.
100%. So us as analysts, and we have people that come to talk to us for this information, makes our lives even more difficult because we also struggle with this. But yeah, it's quite uncertain. So last year, when President Biden was still there, the Americans started sending the stakeholders in AGOA across the continent. They had big talks, for example, in Mauritius. So they have been sending people around. So we just sort of are looking at what the sort of rhetoric is coming out of the US, and it seemed like some of the unfriendly countries, they've been targeting, like, for example, South Africa with our foreign policy. They may just get rid of AGOA, but some other places they're looking at these bilateral deals. We've been covering quite extensively in our research in Oxford. So we do feel strongly that there will be some kind of replacement for AGOA, but it may not be as extensive. It probably is going to be some kind of bilateral deal. And countries that have very good relations with the states. So, for example, Ghana, Kenya, other strategic ones like Nigeria, maybe Djibouti because of its ports, they will probably get some kind of preferential deal, whereas some of the ones that are not toeing the line according to US foreign policy may be left out in the cold. So we're tracking it, and we think we're hopeful that there'll be some kind of, if AGOA goes, we think there will be some kind of replacement.
All right, Jervin, before I let you go, talk to me about what else is left on the president's agenda. We spoke about the 11 goals that he managed to achieve. What else does he still need to achieve from that plan that he put through while he was campaigning?
Yeah, I think the big one is tackling the illegal gold trade in Ghana, which is really massive. So Ghana's exports, around 50% of its exports are gold, and they're losing a significant amount to the illegal mining sector. So with this new gold body, the whole idea is to sort of regulate the process. So he hasn't yet really put together like a task force to deal with that. On corruption, while he's initiating investigations, no one's been charged. So that's like a kind of wishy-washy kind of promise. But I think the important one that he promised was a very big thing, was the 24-hour economy, which we spoke about last time. We 3 8-hour shifts of people continuously working. So now obviously that might be good for the economy, but we have the human rights angle, or the social angle, the workers' rights angle. So he hasn't yet put in place, or at least introduced legislation into Parliament to achieve that. So I think that's the really, really big one I think people are looking at, because he made it quite a big thing. His party's manifesto was centered on, this 24-hour economy. So I think addressing that, as well as some security issues in the Greater Sahel region, dealing with the issue of the AES, ECOWAS is, even though it's its 50th birthday this year, ECOWAS is not as strong, and there's some conflict in Bakwa on the border with Burkina Faso. So he's also needing to deal with that. So I don't think he's going to achieve that in 120 days. We'll have to maybe look at that another time. But those are the big ones that I don't think he has made good on, at least.
Jervin, thanks so much for your time and just sharing your insights. That was political analyst at Oxford Economics Africa, Jervin Naidoo.